Here's your notes for section 3.2 in geometry. There is a list of postulates and theorems on page 146 and 147 in your book. You're going to memorize them, but you're going to accidentally memorize them or just memorize them by use. You're always going to have notes and anything to look back on during your daily quizzes. In the book, they look like this. It says, for your notebook, like make sure you have this. One of them is a postulate, the other three are theorems. It's not important to know which one is a postulate, which one is a theorem. We kind of mostly just call them all theorems a lot of time, or just drop that word. But instead of copying that chart out, I want to have you put this in your notebook the way it's stated here by me and a drawing next to it. So the first one starts, if two parallel lines. So first of all, you have to have parallel lines. If they're not parallel, postulate doesn't work. If those two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, which we learned the word transversal in section 1, important that you know your vocabulary, then, and as you can see the ... we're not going to repeat if two parallel lines are cut by a transversal then, because it's used all 4 times in each of the postulates and theorems. Then, first one, corresponding angles are congruent. So we already know what corresponding angles are, or you're supposed to know what corresponding angles are. But now, if these two lines are parallel, your corresponding angles are actually going to be congruent to each other. And I'll show you that over here. If you look at this angle, because this line is parallel, and you can see it's parallel to 2 little triangles, because it's parallel, when you cut this transversal through it, you're cutting at the exact same angle as you did on the previous line. One line cuts through, because these are parallel lines, it makes it perfect. If they weren't parallel lines, oops, let me see if I can make it not parallel. Maybe it won't let me. Okay, if they're not parallel lines, there's no way that those are the same size. These are the same size because they're parallel. Those are not the same size. That gets much more acute when you go this way, or much more obtuse when you go this way. They have to be perfectly parallel, and if they are, then they're cut at exactly the same size angle. See if I can get that back. Okay, next one. If two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, then alternate interior angles are also congruent. If you take a look at your alternate interior angles, let me get this back where it belongs. There we go. Alternate interior angles, go ahead and mark them on yours, would be here and here. That pair are congruent to each other. So if this is a 40-degree angle, that's a 40-degree angle. Other direction, if this is a 140-degree angle, then that is also a 140-degree angle. Now you have the distinct advantage, and I've told you this before, like you can't assume how big an angle is, you can't guess that it's 90 degrees, you're not sure that it's obtuse unless they tell you it's obtuse, but you can still at least look at these and say, well, yeah, if this is an alternate interior angle, that's the same size as this alternate interior angle, and they have to be because they were cut by parallel lines. It is also true that alternate exterior angles are congruent. As you can see the little pattern here. Alternate exterior, if that's 40 degrees, so is its alternate exterior angle. If this is 140 degrees, so is its alternate exterior angle. They're the same size. And as far as like what I'm saying is memorizing this, you're memorizing them, but you're also maybe common sense knowing them. If these are parallel, all 4 of these angles are going to be exactly the same size. So whether they're vertical, alternate interior, alternate exterior, corresponding, those are all exactly the same size angles because of the parallel lines. And then so are these going the opposite direction. You have 4 pair of angles that are all the same size going the opposite direction. So is that memorizing, or is it just using your resources and recognizing them? Here's the one that's different. If two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, then consecutive interior angles are supplementary. Consecutive interior angles are supplementary. That's the only one, as you can see here, that are not congruent. Congruent, 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 supplementary. Now, let's take a look Again, do you have to say like, oh, I need flashcards, I got to memorize. Which one of those again was it that's not congruent and supplementary? If you know what consecutive, or sometimes called same side interior, if you know what those are, take a look at them. Like, there's no possible way that those are congruent. If this one is acute, this one will always be obtuse. I said there's no possible way they're congruent. There's one possible way, and some of you probably already wanted to correct me, because I know you. Okay, if that was perpendicular, okay, fine. Then consecutive interior angles are congruent, but that's because every single angle on the entire two parallel lines and a perpendicular are congruent. So you can't use that exception. So do you have to memorize that consecutive interior angles are supplementary, add up to 180 degrees instead of congruent? I don't know. Do you have to memorize it, or can you just tell by looking? This is definitely large and obtuse. This is definitely small and acute, and together they're going to add up to 180. All right, you have this diagram, and hopefully you already have your handout, or you have this printed so that you don't have to draw the entire thing. It's not terrible to draw it. Definitely parallel lines because they're marked with the triangles. You are given only one set of information, and that is that the measure of angle 5 equals 65 degrees. So we know measure of angle 5 right here is 65 degrees. Tell what each angle measure equals and which reason is used, meaning the reason of one of these four, either corresponding alternate interior, alternate exterior, or consecutive interior. Now, there is a catch to this, and I'll show you it in a second. When we go to angle 6, you're going to say, probably make a list of it over on the side, measure of angle 6 equals, we know this is a straight line. We know that's a linear pair. That's not from this chapter. It's from last chapter, but you still have to use it and carry it over. We know that adds up to 180. Therefore, angle 6, measure of angle 6 is 115 degrees. Okay? Fair enough. That is true. 115 degrees. How do you know that? It is a linear pair with this given angle, number 65 degrees. Okay, now I'm going to do measure of angle 7. The measure of angle 7 equals, well, if you look at these are vertical angles. Vertical angles are congruent. What's the reason? Vertical, watch your spelling. It's vertical, C-A-L, not C-L-E. Vertical angles, and I'm fine if you abbreviate angles with an angle and an S. Okay, here's what's happening. You have to compare angle 7 with the given angle. How does angle 7 compare with angle 5? Angle 7 is a vertical angle with angle 5. You are not, see this, not allowed to say that angle 7 is 65 degrees because it's a linear pair, because you're looking here and you're seeing that it's a linear pair with angle 6. Not okay. Why is that not okay? We've talked about this before. We don't know what angle 6 is. We think we know, but we did the math on that. That was not given information. If you make a mistake here, then you're going to make a mistake here, then you're going to make a mistake there, and it's going to snowball to the point that you're going to have them all wrong. Always give your reason back to how is it related to the given angle, which in this case is 5. 6 is related because it's a linear pair. 7 is related because it's a vertical angle. If you have to, take out all the other angles so you're not looking at them. Let's go ahead and jump over here to measure of angle 4. The measure of angle 4, take a look at it and how it compares to angle 5. Here's the transversal. They are on the same side of the transversal. They are also between the lines, which makes them interior between the parallel lines. Measure of angle 4 equals 65 degrees. Notice my notation every time. Measure of angle 4 equals 65 degrees. Put it all in there. Why? How is it related to angle 5? Consecutive interior angles. Or, as we've called them, same side interior angles. But it has to be related to 5. Is it related to 6? Oh my gosh, look at what I just did. Thank you for correcting me. You're probably shouting at your screen. Consecutive interior angles are supplementary. As you can tell, which I should have noticed, this is definitely acute, only 65 degrees. That is very obviously obtuse at 115 degrees. And now you can check your answer. Yes, 4 and 6 are corresponding angles, which means they are congruent. Moving on to angle 8. Angle 8, how is it related to angle 5? I'm going to erase angle 4 right there. Angle 8 has a corresponding angle to angle 5 because they are both in the lower right-hand corner of the transversal. Therefore, the measure of angle 8 is 65 degrees. And how do we know that? Because they are corresponding angles. Corresponding angles. Last one, measure of angle 9. I'm going to throw measure of angle 9 up here. Let's get rid of angle 8. Marking up angle 9. Angle 9, if you can tell by looking at it, it's definitely an acute angle. You're going to have 4 acute angles, 4 obtuse angles. If it's acute, it has to be 65 degrees. Of course, only because the lines are parallel. It's not always true, just when we have parallel lines. The measure of angle 9 is 65 degrees. What is its connection or relation to the measure of angle 5? They are alternate, check out my abbreviation here, interior angles. Alt-int angles. Don't call them alternate angles. Don't call them interior angles. You've got to get alternate, interior, and angles in there. Same thing over here. If you call this vertical, I'm marking it wrong. Vertical is the opposite of horizontal. Has nothing to do with angles. Vertical angles. If you call this linear, I'm marking it wrong. Linear just means it's a line on a graph. Linear pair means there's 2 angles that are supplementary that together make a straight line. Big difference. Big difference. All right, let's try this one. Hopefully you already have the diagram again. Find the measure of angle 1 and give the reason. Take a look up here. Compare it to the given information. We know this is 125 degrees. We know it's very obviously obtuse. Angle 1 is also very obviously obtuse. And it is in the same place or location as the 125 degrees is. But this one is in the upper right-hand corner of the top line. This one is in the upper right-hand corner of the bottom line. That makes them congruent. Measure of angle 1 equals 125 degrees by corresponding angles. If you still need to look it up, or if you made flashcards, make sure you get angles in there, or you still need flashcards, that's okay for now. Keep looking it up and making sure you're getting them right, but eventually you're going to do so many with all of these that you're going to accidentally memorize it, as I said. Find x, give the reason. I'm looking for x. I know that x plus 15 has got to be supplementary to angle 1. Because if I go back to the beginning, I have no relationship between x plus 15 and 125. They are not related at all. We have every combination of names for angles except same side exterior. There's no such thing as same side exterior. Now, if I rewrote the book, I probably would just put it in there and say same side exterior angles are congruent. If 2 lines are parallel. Oh, not congruent, supplementary. I'd say same side or same side exterior angles are supplementary, but they don't say it. It's not a postulate. It's not a theorem. So we're going to say x plus 15 is related to angle 1. Hopefully you got angle 1 correct. So when we add those together, it will equal 180. We get x plus 140 equals 180, and x equals 40. Make sure it makes sense before you finish this off. 40 plus 15 is 55. 55 plus 125 is 180. Okay, there's our find x, but now when it says give a reason, you're going to say linear pair, but you need a reference. If you're not going to the given information, which was our 125 up in the corner, linear pair with angle 1. It's showing you that you have a reference to why you decided it was a linear pair. And again, it's because we don't have anything called same side exterior angles. All right, last one. Here's your diagram. If the measure of angle 1 is 105 degrees, find the measure of angle 4, measure of angle 5, and measure of angle 8, and tell which postulate or theorem you used in each case. Right here, I want you to pause the video and do it yourself, and then turn it back on and see if they match up. Okay, we're back. I filled out all of the angles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Just went around 105, 75, 105, 75, 105, 75, 105, 75. Why is the measure of angle 4 105 degrees? Because angle 1 and angle 4 are vertical angles. Why is the measure of angle 5 105 degrees? Because angle 1, which is our given, and angle 5 are corresponding angles. Why is the measure of angle 8 105 degrees? Because back to the given, angle 1 and angle 8 are alternate exterior angles. So vertical angles, corresponding angles, alternate exterior angles. And the rest of them you didn't need to label. If the measure of angle 3, same diagram but new information, has nothing to do with the 105 and all of that. If the measure of angle 3 is 68 degrees, and the measure of angle 8 is 2x plus 4, what is the value of x? Again, we don't have same side exterior angles, but you can tell by looking at them that this is acute and this is obtuse. And again, we don't normally go by looks, but we do when we have a pair of parallel lines because there's no other way to cut it. If that's acute and that's obtuse, you know that all together they are going to have to be supplementary and add up to 180 degrees because everything on parallel lines does. Do the math. You get 2x plus 72 equals 180. You get 2x equals 108, and x equals 54. And that was down here for what is the value of x. If you want to double check it, plug it in, make sure you get 112, which we do. All right, that's it. Try to do your homework without looking at your notes and finding corresponding alternate interior, alternate exterior, and consecutive interior, linear pair vertical angles. But if you need them, use your flashcards, and just keep getting better and better at not looking back at them as much as you can. But definitely double check when you do your daily quizzes and your homework if you're not sure. All right, that's it.